Previously on Lame Duck Watch, we examined the practice of burrowing when a lame duck president installs political appointees into civil service jobs where they stay after the administration has gone home. Take the case of Todd Harding. According to the Washington Post today, Mr. Harding is a 30-year-old government major and former chair of the Kentucky Federation of College Republicans. He was a political appointee, but he just got a permanent civil service job with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the agency that warns us about, hurricanes and tsunamis. In an email to colleagues, Mr. Harding describes his brand new job as, quote, space-based science using satellites for geostationary and meteorological data. A 30-year-old government major. Remember that next hurricane season. Meanwhile, back at the White House, the Bush administration has decided to open up vast swaths of wilderness in eastern Utah for oil and gas extraction, right next to the pristine natural beauty of places like Arches National Park. Remember this crowd? Go! Woo! That crowd, lost on November 4th. But on November 4th, on that exact day, on Election Day, the Bureau of Land Management proposed leasing almost 360,000 acres of land to oil and gas speculators, bypassing the National Park Service to do it. And the thing about defiling nature to drill is that once it's done, it's done. You don't get pristine back. Joining me now is Robert Redford, Academy Award-winning director, longtime actor, producer, and environmentalist who has been blogging about this last-minute lease plan at Huffington Post. Mr. Redford, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be on.
You've got a lot of experience in this field. You've been fighting on behalf of wilderness protection since the early 70s. Do you think these last-minute lease plans are really serious? Do you think they'll get away with it?
Well, I don't know. I think they're serious because they've been serious all along. I mean, look, Bush's policies have been, environmental policies have been a disaster. But that's no surprise when you look at the history of what he's done since he came in. So I think they're totally serious. Whether it's going to work or not, I think is going to depend on whether the public wakes up to what's really going on that's going to affect their own personal interests. So here you have, if you look at the Bush administration's cynicism, and it's also been devious because whenever they couldn't get a bill passed legitimately, they would go behind our backs. And when you stop and think about 30 years of hard work to get certain protections passed into law like clean water, clean air, the Environmental Policy Act, those were acts to protect the American public and the land that we claim we cherish. Well, he's tried in his 8 years to undo just about every one of those laws. And we stop and think it all began with Cheney doing a behind-the-closed-doors energy policy design with energy companies. You could pretty well see where it was all going to go. So it's pretty cynical, and it's in my opinion, it's criminal in the sense that what are we going to have to give to our children and their children and theirs if we tear up everything for short-term gains that are tied to non-renewable energy sources? I mean, just do the math. You've got non-renewable energy sources, which is oil and gas and coal. You have renewable energy sources, which are now totally viable, safer, cleaner, better economically. What are we going to invest in? Like Rendell, Governor Rendell was just talking about investing in the future. Well, what kind of an investment in our future is drilling, thinking we can drill ourselves out of this mess? And the thing that really is awful, I mean, really, really deeply awful, is what it's doing behind the American public's back. The cynicism of designing a plan like this, putting out oil leases, gas leases, coal leases, and 360,000 acres that surround national parks and monuments and canyons and rivers, is pretty devastating in terms of the pollution and the economics of it and so forth. The fact that they would do that on Election Day when everybody was distracted by the election and set a date for December the 19th, and the sister agency, this came through the BLM, okay? So the sister agency, which is the National Park Service, wasn't even told about it. They went behind their backs so they could jam it through. So obviously there's a plan as Bush goes out, and as he goes out the door, he'd like to give us one good kick in the tail on his way out. This, to me, is the most cynical, very dangerous, and as you said, Rachel, that once it's done, it's intractable. And so I'm mad, the American people are mad, and we can stop this. I mean, President-elect Obama has a plan to go in a forward direction, not a backward direction, like Bush is proclaiming. So Just as the guy's coming into office, this guy tries to sneak one past us before the guy can even take office. Pretty cynical, and I hope it's stopped. It should be stopped.
I know there's a 30-day public protest period which ends the first week in December, which is coming up very shortly. Do you think that public protest, that form of public official protest, would help stop this lease sale?
Well, look, I'm just one voice in the wilderness. I mean, excuse the pun, but I mean, I'm just one voice out there. But I'm glad to go on the show simply to say, if we pull together, if the American people get up now and contact their local officials and say, we don't want this. This is our land. It's not his land. It's our land. It's our heritage. And you're going to trash it for some short-term game that's going to destroy some of the most beautiful places on the face of the earth. I think the American people will stop it and can stop it. But they're going to have to act fast because these guys are trying to pull an end around.
Actor, director, and environmentalist Robert Redford, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate having you here.
You're welcome.
Coming up next.